you would stand, that would be fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. All right. I'd like to thank the Ladies Republican Club and the North Lake Tea Party for sponsoring this event to give the voters a chance to find out what we're all about. And my name is Walter Price, and just it's cliche, but just remember Price is right, and we'll be good. I'm a resident here in Tavares. I've lived here for 30 years. I've been married to my wife Barbara for 35 years. I have 2 children and 4 grandchildren, so I'm very happy about that. I'm the owner of Price Appraisal Group here in Tavares. I've been appraising properties here in Lake County and the surrounding counties for the past 27 years, and I do residential and commercial. Of the 4 of us here, I'm the only one that is actual out there every day in the field. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about my credentials real quick. I hold the MAI and SRA professional designations from the Appraisal Institute. There's only about 2,000 appraisers in the world that have those designations, both of them. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Real Estate, Risk Management, and Marketing from Florida State University. I'm also a real estate broker and a realtor here locally. And I also have the CFP designation, Certified Financial Planner. I also carry that professional designation. So, thank you, and I'll give it over to Pam.
My name is Pam Lee, and I just want to share a poem with you that strikes very dear to my heart, and with all the patriots in the room, I think you might enjoy this. Tax his land, tax his bed, tax the table at which he's fed. Tax his tractor, tax his mule, teach him taxes are the rule. Tax his work, tax his pay, he works for peanuts anyway. Tax his cow, tax his goat, tax his pants, tax his coat. Tax his ties, tax his shirt, tax his work, tax his dirt. Tax his tobacco, tax his drink, tax him if he tries to think. Tax his cigars, tax his beers, if he cries, tax his tears. Tax his car, tax his gas, find other ways to tax his ass. Tax all he has, then let him know that you won't be done till he has no dough. When he screams and hollers, then tax him some more, tax him till he's good and sore. Then tax, it's not over. Then tax, I'm not done taxing you. Then tax his coffin, tax his grave, tax the sod in which he's laid. Put these words upon his tomb, taxes drove me to my doom. When he's gone, do not relax, it's time to apply the inheritance tax. I think you can tell by that poem that I am running because I think it's time that we reduce the size and scope of government and try and find ways to rein in some of the spending. So that's why I'm running, and I'm more than happy to let you know about my credentials. They're right over there, and I'm happy to tell you about them. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ed Havill, and this was Miss Lee, in case we missed that. I've been your property appraiser for the last 35 years. I've got 2 bachelor's degrees, a master's degree, appraisal education before I was elected, and since I was elected, I've had over 1,000 hours of appraisal education. Walter said he's the only one out in the field. I'm the other one. I go out periodically and spot check the work the field appraisers are doing. And usually it's every day. As far as reducing the size and scope of government, Ms. Lee talked about, I agree with that. Those of you who know me know what I've been doing for the last 35 years. I'm the one that yelled and screamed about the chairs the county commissioners bought that were $1,000 each of your money, the furniture for the new annex to the over by the parking garage, and they didn't go out and get other bids. We got them to do that. There's a lot of things I've done. These other candidates will tell you what they plan to do. That's a bunch of words. I have shown you what I can do for the last 35 years, and I appreciate it if you consider me in the election on August 14th. Thank you.
I'm Carey Baker, and thank you for having me here tonight. Really, the question is, not where the property appraiser's office is today, but where and who is going to move this office forward into the future. What will this office look like 4 years from now or 8 years from now? Who's going to have the passion and the excitement to embrace the emerging technologies that allow us to do things smarter and faster, more cost efficient, protect the taxpayers? The future of the property appraiser business is coming to us, and the technology is changing rapidly. And as a Florida legislature, I saw this coming, and I passed legislation that allows property appraisers to use some of the new technology, particularly the digital high-definition photography. It has saved property appraisers, meaning you taxpayers, millions of dollars. I worked on property tax issues. I helped place on the ballot a doubling of the homestead exemption from $25,000 to $50,000. I have been a champion of the taxpayers, a champion of property rights. I'd also like to mention that I own the Peterson Gun Shop in Mount Dora. I'm a small businessman, and we're available for all your hunting and shooting needs. Next month I'll have 31 years in the Army National Guard, and that speaks to my ability to motivate and manage people. I took 130 men to Iraq. We accomplished our mission, achieved our goals, and I brought them home alive. Currently, I'm a military school administrator. 100 instructors and staff, and graduated 4,000 students last year. My abilities have been recognized by property appraisers around the state. The property appraiser of Volusia County, of Seminole County, of Orange County, and of Polk County, among others, have endorsed me as the most qualified candidate in this race. But of course, the endorsement I look for the most tonight is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The first question that we have tonight, we're going to start now on this end of the table. Carey, you'll get Mr. Baker, you'll get the first question. And then our second question, Mr. Havill, you will begin. And then we'll continue to go down the row and then back up. Okay? The time, every question will be 2 minutes. Thank you. The first question, the candidates had the opportunity to have this question ahead of time so that they could give thoughtful consideration to their answer. And as the point of the forum is to get to know our candidates, we felt like this would be of better benefit to we the people who are here to listen and get to know you. So Mr. Baker, the first question I have are, what will be the 3 biggest challenges facing the property appraiser in the next 2 years? And what training and experience do you have which makes you the most qualified to face these challenges?
Thank you. As I mentioned before, technology is changing. And the property appraiser's office has to adapt to the new technology. And many of them are. I can give you plenty of examples there in Volusia County where technology has allowed the property appraiser to use a computerized aerial photography software that measures commercial buildings. Never has to send an appraiser out there. So when I think about the challenges facing us, I think of what is the property appraiser you're about to elect has to recognize those technology changes that will drive down costs, make them more efficient, provide better services. So we're talking about better technology in the office, and that leads to better service. And thirdly, we need a property appraiser that has the vision and the ability to motivate his staff and to motivate this office to be prepared for the future. Times are changing, folks, and we need to adapt it, and the changes that we have, and I can give you another example in Orange County. The bill I passed allowing aerial photography to be used has resulted in the property appraiser in Orange County to be able to get rid of his entire fleet of cars. He has no cars, and that's because he was able to utilize the technology that I passed in that bill, among others. And if we don't adapt to that, we will not be providing the type of services that you deserve, We will not be reaching the ability to make a difference within the staff to do their job better. And the ability for me as a property appraiser to reach out to you, to listen to what you want from the property appraiser's office. If I have the tools to make those changes, I can be a much better property appraiser, and it's all about the future. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, I've been a property appraiser for the last 35 years. I've demonstrated what I can do. When I walked into that office, technology, I agree with Carey. Technology is right. We've got to keep up with it, and I've kept up with it. When I walked into that office, they had hard cards that were using pencils to change the assessments with erasers on the ends of the pencils. We computerized the office, and to save you money, there was a program called CETA that the federal government paid for people who are unemployed to be able to work. And we got volunteers that worked on that program. They got paid by the federal government. We computerized to a mainframe computer, and since then we've got personal computers. I've kept up with the technology in the office. The GIS system, Geographic Information System, that he refers to, that they've got in the other counties, costs about $500,000 a year. Only we've got it in Lake County, and it's not costing our office anything because the county commission set up a GIS department years ago, and we use those GIS aerials. And our field appraisers have to go out because you got a canopy of trees or something like that. We have to look at condition of pieces of property. GIS is limited what it can do. The third thing is your taxpayers' dollars and not wasting them. Over the last 35 years, I've stood up to taxing authorities in this county for you to save money, and I want to continue to do that. But with the economy the way it's been, dollars are going to be even more precious to you than they have been in the past. The furniture in my office, Donna and I personally paid for. That includes the computer and the printer. The only thing the taxpayers of Lake County paid for was the telephone on my desk. Thank you very much.
Ms. Lee?
Before I answer the question, with all due respect to Mr. Havill, they didn't really have much computers back in 1976 when he started. So yeah, I'm glad that he's done his job and kept up with the computer technology. The second thing is Mr. Havill says you're going to get more of what he's done. I want to show you right here a stack of 600 petitions that were filed this year in particular. This cost your taxpayers $43,000. And these petitions could have been solved quickly and easily if just a little bit of communication had been done. And then also, if you want to know some other stuff that Mr. Havill has done, here's 3 pages of all the lawsuits and there's, right now I think there's a dozen or so lawsuits that are still open. And I want to let everyone know that lawsuits are not good. The city of Claremont just lost a lawsuit with a taxpayer and put them in debt. The city of Mineola is about to go under because of lawsuits. So these are things that I think are important that you know. As far as what I feel about it is I feel that this is a good time for us to take a real stark look at the reality of the situation here in Lake County, and it doesn't look very good. I have the graphs here that show that Lake County is in big trouble as far as its unemployment numbers and also as far as its personal income is one of the lowest in the country. So what we have here is we have somebody that needs to look at the situation and see what we need to do for the future. And the future, if you look at all the real estate books and everything like that, the future of real estate is going to be completely different. There is going to be a need very soon for this county to look for alternate ways of funding the way that it does business, because property taxes are not going to cut it. For example, one of the things that concerns me the most is the commercial part of it, because commercial properties are leaving and they're not coming back.
Thank you. We do want to give, after Mr. Price gives his answer to the question. If, Mr. Havill, you would like to take 30 seconds, when someone's directly challenged tonight, we are going to offer the opportunity for the candidate to give a 30-second response to that. Mr. Price?
Thank you. I also feel that there are some areas of improvement that we need in the property appraiser's office. Technology is certainly one of those. We might not necessarily need to jump into it full bore right from the start and spend $500,000, but if we implement it slowly over time, that would be a good thing. We need to make some changes to the website so that sales information is more readily available to consumers. And also for the appraisers in the field, they need to have like tablet PCs and things so they can get information back and not have to rely on paper records. I think customer service needs to be improved. Ed has mentioned they have great customer service, but in my travels campaigning, I've had people tell me that they've been in and say, hey, I have a problem with my value, and the response they've gotten from the office is, well, the Department of Revenue accepted it, must be okay. Or, well, just take it up to the Value Adjustment Board, we just don't have time to fool with it. And so, I mean, there are some issues there. I also feel that the assessments themselves, they're all over the board. Some are higher than sales prices, some are lower. And being an appraiser, one of the things that I can do is make sure the assessments are as accurate as possible and mirror actual market values. In some places like Claremont, values are down from where they were in 2003 still. Places like the Villages, values are actually up from where they were in 2003. So the assessments need to accurately reflect that. Some of the technology stuff we're talking about is good, but you know, there's nothing that beats a human pair of eyes for judging the condition of a property or the location of a property. You know, the aerial's not going to tell you if there's a sewage treatment plant next door. I mean, those are the kind of things a human needs to check out. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. Ladies and gentlemen, a whole bunch of stuff. I don't have 30 seconds. I can't cover it all. Technology, for instance. Right now we're working on fieldmen using a cell phone out in the field to get into the assessment role that we're working at that time, instead of having to go back and forth to the field. As far as people being told to go to the Value Adjustment Board, we look at every single piece of property that comes in. If they disagree with us, they can go to the Value Adjustment Board. The values in the property, thank you.
Mr. Havill, we'll start with you for the second question. We'll go down the line and then we'll finish with Mr. Baker. In talking about the future, would you restructure the property appraiser's office in any way? If so, discuss projects, personnel, or services you would like to restructure.
Thank you. When I walked into that office, there was a few desks in there. People, when they were out in the field, somebody else would sit at their desk. It wasn't organized. It was like one big room. We built cubicles on the weekends. Didn't charge the field guys, pay the field guys anything to do it. I did it with them. The field appraisers were not certified. I personally taught the first group of field appraisers. The only thing I send them to school for is to get their certification so they can do a good job. One of the problems you've got with government is you start out doing one thing, and this morning another forum we had, I pointed out the use of a car. You want to go from here to there. Some people in government, like these other counties Carey's talking about, they spend money like it's not theirs because they don't think it is theirs. It's like buying a car with air conditioning, power steering, power brakes, power windows. All you need is a basic vehicle to get from here to there and save taxpayers money. If people had to spend their own money like they do at home and they're in public office, you wouldn't have the higher taxes you have every year. Thank you.
Ms. Lee?
As I stated earlier, my goal would be to reduce the size and scope of government, and of course I'm going to start with myself. the legislature last year, there was a House bill, and all the constitutional officers have the authority to reduce their salary voluntarily. I will do that. Right now the salary is $131,000. I think that's a little much for a county where the average salary is $43,000. I would be reducing that to about $80,000. The second thing that I would do is run a complete performance process audit to make sure that there are no duplications of effort, to make sure that every one of those statutes in the Constitution are all being followed to the letter. And then from there, we would make decisions about improving the ability of the office to serve the people and do it in an efficient manner. Then what I would do is look to find ways after the audit to privatize as much of the appraisal service as possible. I certainly don't want Mr. Price to lose his business just to become a constitutional officer. My goal would be to use the certified appraisals that are already done. For example, when you have a piece of property and you have a mortgage, you already have a certified appraisal that the bank orders. I don't know why the taxpayer has to duplicate that effort, especially since none of the appraisers down there, save for Eric Bourne, is a state certified appraiser. And what bothers me is that in the Florida statutes 193, it gives the property appraiser the presumption of correctness. I don't understand why the property appraiser's office has a presumption of correctness when they're not state certified, when someone like Mr. Havill could do the job for less because he would not be a public employee. We would just contract out services. Thank you.
Well, I know in these recessionary times it's good to watch every penny, and but you know, I own a small business, and you know, there's such a thing as employee morale and making sure your employees are happy. And I would like to make sure that the employees at the property appraiser's office are not overworked and underpaid for what they do. They have an awesome responsibility. Some of them have tens of thousands of parcels they have to take care of. And I would want to make sure that they're getting compensated fairly for that work that they're doing. I would also, for instance, on the technology again, take example of the website. Right now you can go to the website and you can search for commercial sales that have occurred. You can put in the use code, such as an office or a hotel or whatever, and you can find commercial properties that have sold. But if you want to go and do that on the residential side, let's say you own a vacant lakefront lot, you cannot go to the website and search for vacant lakefront lot sales that have sold. You can only search for subdivisions. So, and maybe section, township, and range, which is a larger area. So that's another area that I would want to improve on if I got in there. It doesn't necessarily, you know, I don't necessarily want to run in there and say, oh, we got to cut. No, I don't want to do that. I want to take a look at everything and make sure everything is fair and equitable as it can be there. Thank you.
Well, specifically, I talk a lot initially about technology. And to give specific examples, some of it's pretty simple. Orange County, for those applying for homestead exemption, they do it completely online. They never walk into the property appraiser's office. 60% of all homestead exemptions in Orange County are done online. Bill Donegan told me he was able to reduce his front office staff by half. A simple change in technology and a great reduction in savings to the taxpayer. Utilizing these aerial photography, now, are there homes or businesses under oak trees? Sure. But if you could do half of the property, where you have somebody, instead of traveling all over God's creation in the vehicle, a government vehicle, sit behind a computer and check the block, one parcel after the other. Folks, there's almost 200,000 parcels in Lake County. You can't have enough appraisers visually inspecting 200,000 parcels. So that's where to use that technology, to look at those images, to check the block has already saved, they're estimating nearly $10 million a year statewide. Walter mentioned having all the sales data available. The property appraiser's office collects sales data on vacant lots, commercial lots, everything. That ought to all be on the website. available to anyone that needs it, available to you. Realtors would love to have all that data. It's an easy change. We can do it. It's not going to cost a lot of money. And then the mapping department, the GIS mapping. Most counties that are our size, the mapping department is underneath the property appraiser because a property appraiser is responsible for who owns property and property lines. You're already paying for it in the county. Moving it over to the property appraiser will cost you the same, yet the property appraiser will have more control.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. We're going to start with you for this question and then continue on down and then back through. What are the various sources of money for the property appraiser budget? And how would you like to allocate monies differently than they are now?
Well, right now, according to the Florida statutes, and I have it over there if you want to see it, but actually what happens is that the taxing authorities, which is what comes in on your trim notice, it shows the taxing authorities actually pay a commission to the property appraiser's office to run their office, and then whatever's left over goes back to the taxing authority. So honestly, at this point, unless something is done legislatively to change that method of operation would continue by law as it's legislated. As far as being able to return the money back to the taxing authority, I would certainly do everything in my power to make sure that the money is maximized as far as how much is returned back to the taxing authority.
Well, as far as the budget goes, I have seen the budget from last year. Ed was kind enough to provide me with a copy of it. And I don't know a lot about the details. I've seen the numbers, the totals, but I would like to be able to actually get in there and see what makes up the numbers that are in the budget to see if there's any changes that need to be made as far as payroll goes, as far as retirement options goes. You know, being that I'm also a CFP, I understand about retirement options and the different plans that are available, which could be of benefit. So I don't really want to say, yeah, I'd get in there and change it until I have the opportunity to actually get in there and see what makes up the budget numbers itself.
The property appraiser's office is funded by the county. Now, Mr. Havill submits, and every property appraiser submits their budget to the Department of Revenue for initial approval, and that is to offer the taxpayers some protection, to make sure counties aren't cutting the funding of the property appraisers as a punitive measure. So the Department of Revenue sort of checks a block on his budget, approves it, and then that comes to the county commission for them to fund it. So that's where the money comes from. The savings, specifically, I think Patricia asked about savings. I've already talked about the technology. It's easy to see how we can reduce our front office staff if people aren't having to walk in the front door. If they can submit these forms online. That's easy. It's easy to see how we can free up the work of appraisers. If they're, instead of driving all over the county, if they can do their work from the computer screen. And then I think there's one way that you're going to be able to measure my success as your next property appraiser. And that is, when you take a look at all the vehicles the property appraisers own, and you will see, as we slowly institute this technology, I'm going to start to sell those cars. Now, maybe I can't sell them all in the first 6 months or the first year, but you'll be able to measure my success by every time you drive by that fleet, and it gets smaller and smaller, and you go, well, it looks like Carey Baker is making his office more and more efficient. So those are a few examples.
Thank you, Carey. Thanks for bringing it up, but I remembered just now that when you're head of the Transportation Committee in Tallahassee, you're supposed to get rid of the state plane that the legislators and cabinet members use. And you said you couldn't get much money for it, and you kept it. So don't talk about getting rid of cars that we need on a daily basis. The source of our money, they kind of hit around it. The county commission gives us about 85% of our budget. The balance of about 15% comes from the water authorities. Ms. Lee said we get a commission. I've never asked for a commission. The statutes say you can ask for a commission. Bob McKee's office gets a commission for what he does for the county. I did fire and trash years ago when they first started it, and I did it for free. Our people in the office did that for the county commission. You talk about money and how it's spent. Mr. Price said he doesn't know the details of the numbers in the budget, but yet the people are underpaid, and he's going to straighten all that out when he gets in. We've got 37 employees. Counties our size has twice as much or more employees. We get the best bang for the buck from the tax dollars, and I think that's what you want. You want the job done. And a lot of these charges that are made tonight, we're already doing. I can't go into details because he's waving at me.
Mr. Havill mentioned both Mr. Baker and Mr. Price. If you would like to take 30 seconds to respond, you both have that available to you.
Thank you. The allegation was that I had an opportunity to sell a state claim. Well, the fact is, I did. We had 3 state claims. I sold one of them, and when Governor Scott came in, he sold the rest. So that allegation was false. I've always been a champion and a warrior for the taxpayers. That's my reputation. I'll do the same as your next property appraiser.
Well, Ed Havill is well known for his frugality, and I will admit that, and that's been a good thing for the county. And what I'm saying, though, is going forward, we need to make sure that not only are the citizens getting the bang for their buck that they're supposed to get, but the employees there also need to be getting compensated fairly for the work that they're doing there. So, thank you.
Thank you. We'll start the next question with you, Mr. Price. And this was the other question that our candidates were given ahead of time so that they could give thoughtful consideration to the question in an effort to give us more insight into their thoughts on the subject matter. And what are your thoughts regarding the recent proposed Florida legislation, HB 1181, Revenue Neutral Tax Reform by Representatives Costello and Corcoran, to replace property taxes with state sales tax surtax?
Well, I think as we all know, the taxes are really just out of control. Between the IRS code book that's this tall and the property taxes. I think the sales tax option is a good option because it includes everybody that is consuming, whether you're a drug dealer or you're somebody that doesn't pay taxes now. I think that's a good thing because there's a lot of inequity in the tax situation, and I think that's probably a good idea. Now, by the way, you keep saying we've been furnished these questions in advance. I haven't been furnished any questions in advance, so I'm shooting all this from the hip. No questions were given to me in advance, so just thought you might like to know that. Thank you.
I would just like to mention that I was copied on the emails that did go out to each one of you, the emails that are on record.
It was yesterday.
Yesterday. Okay.
Well, maybe Mr. Price can get a chance to further answer once he hears from us. But the bill was, in the Senate, it was Senator Wynn's Senate Bill 430. And the concept is sort of a quasi-fair tax type of, yay, fair tax. But there was enough questions about the bill that it didn't go very far. But here was the concept. In Lake County, 42% of your property tax goes to school taxes. This concept says we are going to take those school taxes and essentially replace them with a 3% additional sales tax. So it would reduce your property tax by 42%, but your sales tax would go up by 3%. But it was sort of a concept bill. There was a lot of work. I mean, in the bill, it also taxed bottled water, which was previously not taxed. It also taxed internet sales, which previously weren't taxed. So the concept was good. I felt that there wasn't enough, my concern was that if we cut 42% out of the property tax, that would allow local governments to say, wow, this is an opportunity for us to raise our taxes and nobody notice. So I think the concept I could support, but obviously it needs a little work. And everybody realized that up there. They all looked at it, everybody was somewhat favorable, but like most things, the devil's in the details.
I want to be a little different on this one. Who believes government doesn't lie? Let me remind you some things about the sales tax. Remember the Florida lottery? Carey just said 42% goes for schools. You know why? Because when that lottery was pushed by the legislature, put it on the ballot, and get it passed, guess what? They started stopping school money and giving more and more of that lottery money till today. The lottery is subsidized in the state budget, actually. Remember the income tax in 1916, 1%? It's changed a little bit. They said that's not much. How do they budget the state budget? Well, they've got local governments that are given mandates by Tallahassee, and there's less and less money going down to that local government, and they're telling the cities, counties, whatever, go raise the money locally. We got to balance our state budget. So they put the mandates down here, but they don't send the money like they used to do. Property taxes have a 10 mil cap, which means you can't go higher than 10 mils. The problem with the sales tax is just like the lottery or the 1% income tax. Once they get that in the door, they can raise it. And then you're going to end up talking about an income tax here in Florida. Property taxes are capped at 10 mils. The taxing authorities, except for the school board, can't go above that. The school board's got a formula where if they spend so much per pupil, they get money from the state. But again, a lot of that's been replaced with lottery money. Look in your wallets and see what government takes out of them. Not just taxes. Taxes, licenses, fees, and service charges still comes out of your pocket. And that's the problem with government. They tell you one thing, they do something else.
I was a little bit disappointed when I saw that it had been killed in committee last Friday. I think that, again, we need to look at the stark reality of property tax today. And part of the reality is that everybody pays property tax, whether or not you own property or not, because every commercial business has to pass that tax on to their customers. I started speaking earlier about the commercial properties and how I see that there could be trouble on the horizon, and I think that we need to address the stark reality as quickly as possible so that we're not caught unawares. But just for an example, the highest paid taxpayer that we have in this county is actually the electric companies. They just pass that on to you. So if that goes up, then your electric bill goes up. The same thing for anything that you buy, anytime you get your hair cut. Things that scare me as far as when I look through those 600 petitions, two things come to mind. Number one is one of the very large taxpayers in this county is a retail giant. They provide a lot of jobs. And with the property taxes being really high and the way the markets are changing the way that they are, it would be a real loss if we lost any commercial businesses. Just for an example, the Kohl's store up in Lady Lake pays $93,000 every year in taxes. They're $245 in the hole before they even open up their doors in the morning, and then they still have to add personnel costs and everything like that. And the way shoppers are today, like for example my son, he's raised in a different age and time than some of the rest of us. He's got an iPhone. If he sees something he likes, he just goes on and see if Amazon has it cheaper. Well, of course Amazon has it cheaper. They don't have any overhead and they're not paying any property taxes. So we need to be very aware and very conscious of a need to find alternate funding for the schools and probably for some other stuff as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. We're going to start with you for the next question. The quality of public service is dependent upon the quality of those providing the service. What is your position on staff and/or professional development regarding education, staggered work schedules, and donation of medical leave time between employees?
Thank you. That's an area I'm very familiar with, particularly in the guards, in the military. All our soldiers are counseled and on a quarterly basis, and the counseling is to do several things. One is to improve their performance. We identify, where they need improvements, what they're doing well, and with the goal is not only for them to do their job better, but for them to be promoted. I've never minded when a soldier of mine wanted to go somewhere else to better himself. And the way he does that is if I do my job. I've been never more proud to see my young soldiers go up through the ranks and know that I encouraged them along the way, that I sent them to the right schools, I made sure they got the right education, and of course now I'm a school administrator. And that's what I'm doing for a living in the Florida National Guard, is preparing soldiers, male and female, to be all they can be, and it's through education, it's through training, and even in the Army, it's a new Army. Meaning, the young soldiers that are coming in today have a different expectation of Army life than they did 30 years ago. And so we're responding to that. And that means being a little more flexible than we used to, in terms of work hours, in terms of the quality of living. I'm the president of our Soldier Advisory Council. And what we do is every quarter we make recommendations to the colonel. And he listens to those recommendations, and it's about improving the quality of life of the soldier, of the instructor, of the student, and it's about making sure they have the opportunity to improve themselves. I would take that same exact philosophy to the property appraiser's office. If they want to go to work for the tax collector's office next door, I want to be the first one to encourage them to do that. If they want to be their own appraiser, I want to tell them I want to be their first customer. It's all about supporting the employee, and that benefits the taxpayer.
Okay, the question was about sick time certification and so forth. We've got a policy in my office that I established a long time ago. If someone needs extended sick time and they don't have enough hours, they could borrow from other people in the office and they give up their time. As far as certified appraisers, as I said, that's the only thing I send our field appraisers to school for. That's the only thing I go to school for. We don't go to these golf conferences and all these other things that last all week. The comment you had about the Army 30 years ago is referring to me. I was in the U.S. Army when I got out of high school. I was in there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But that doesn't make you property appraiser because you're in the Army or National Guard or anything else. The authority in the appraiser's office starts at the top. If you don't have a background in education in appraising property, then how are you going to know what your people are doing? You can hire the best people in the world that are appraisers, but you're taking their word that they're right if you don't know anything about property appraising. And what happens is the appraisers come in sometimes and we sit down and we talk about something, and I got to be the smartest appraiser in the office to make sure the taxpayers are being represented when we look both sides of the issues. That's what you need in a property appraiser, plus the fact that we keep the costs down. Our cost per parcel, of 67 counties, Washington County has a lower cost per parcel. They've got 23,000 people in that county.